Hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. I believe it was hard to choose where to go. And in the beginning, in the morning, I told you in the introduction and asked you how many of you was working in the corporate environment. Yes? Remember that? Let's continue, just small quiz. Yes, thank you for repeating your answer. Who from you already are working using the Agile? Just raise your hand. And are there somebody who are going to implement Agile? No. OK, one hand up. Great. And the last question for me, do you like surprises? No? Yes, it doesn't sound. Do you like surprises? Great. I promise there will be a surprise a little bit later in my presentation. My name is Romāns. I'm working for a company called Tieto. Just in the intro, a few words about the company as such. And Tieto is a Nordic company with a huge number of employees, more than 14,000. We have offices in 20+ countries, and we are working in different areas. Some of our colleagues are working in the services and just provide like expert knowledges or help in different industries. But some of them, as well me, working in the software development area. We are developing the product. More particularly, I'm working in the retail payment and card department. And we are working on the software called Card Suite, but just about our department, that it was founded in Latvia. It was founded 25 years ago. And in it, we have 270 IT experts who is working on this software product. Let's speak about the product itself, just to understand what we are doing. The product called Card Suite. Let's just ask one more question. Do you use payment cards? Ever? Or tapping with your phone for once in life or something like that? Have you ever thought what does it happening behind when you just put the card inside the POS terminal or tap? What happens? How the system knows that you are allowed to spend your money or not? How does it check and how it works? Because you can travel in any country in the world and easily pay with your card. And what is happening? We are responsible for the magic behind that. We are working on the back end, meaning making this happen and be possible to pay with the cards, possible to pay with your phone and whatsoever. In generally, as you can imagine, it is huge software, what stays in the background that allows issuing cards for issuers and acquirers to acquire the cards. It is an old product, what is used by the banks and processing centers, that you can understand that for us, the customers are big financial industry as well players who are quite slow in working in some kind of decision, but when they are ready to make and made a decision to they want something, they say we want it fast. Because there is time to market, they understand that they already spent on their side a lot of time, and now they're putting the pressure on us and saying that we would like to have the ready-to-use software tomorrow. But of course, each bank would like to be different. There is no reason to produce a completely similar solution for multiple banks because they want to distinguish themselves. That's why there is a lot of questions regarding that our product should be customized and should be developed. Just to sum up what the main things that I have just mentioned, we are a big international product. We are working on the one piece of software that is quite huge. We call it platform because we are building different solutions on them. It is hard to work on that. There is 100+ developers who are working on this software. The main customers for that will be bank and financial services institutions. There is 80+ installation on that, and we have quite long history of implementing it, meaning that it was developed more than 20 years ago, this version and this code. And as well, each time it's rewritten, it's additional, but it is like huge background, and there is only several guys in the company who initially know that. And there is some customer-specific solution because, as I said, there is a question from the banks that they would like to change something and adjust. And one more thing that was as well in the question of previous speakers. What about the compliance? Because in our world, we live where the compliance is a must thing, because Visa MasterCards introduce the changes quite regularly. There is a lot of security guys who just implement and push on all kind of software vendors the security requirements. And then we have a legal requirements that as well are must for us. How we work, how we manage this. Many years I was working using the waterfall, and only 2 years ago we have decided that we would like to start our Agile journey because we understood that we would like to change more frequently and to be more dynamic in this case. The decision to go Agile was made in the 2015 in the August. We started, there was internal decision, yes, we would like to completely transfer our development to the Agile. We start to prepare internal meeting in the October 2015. There was a lot of internal meeting how we will switch them. But for us, there was additional pressure because of these kind of requirements about the regular releases, requirements from what comes from our customers. We even don't have 4 years to transit to Agile. On that moment of time, there was a pressure that we need to do it in the 3 months. During the preparation, yeah, it's funny to squeeze this all in a very short period of time. We finished preparation and we start to introduce them general training for all our staff in January 2016. And on the 3rd February of 2016, there was the first sprint for us that we started to work, fully changing the way of working from the waterfall to the Agile. It was very, very hard way to go. I was speaking about that in the Agile Kaunas. I don't know how many from you was participating there. But today, I'm mostly focusing on the product ownership role in this all. But one more thing, what is important, that we choose to work according to the LeSS approach. Journey still continues, meaning that we're still improving day by day how we work and what we do in our job. So we decided to choose the LeSS approach of working because one of the things what is important that we would like to have one view on which overall solve the product. For us, product is important part, and that one person who is overview this is still very, very important. But of course, as I have mentioned, we have a huge company and our product is very big. For us, LeSS is too small. Yeah, it's small methodology. That's why we went to LeSS huge. There was such additional thing that goes on the scaling activities when there is more than 8 teams of developers. We have 14 teams. And in this structure, there is one big product owner who is responsible for overall product development. And there appears like areas, what is mentioned like requirement areas, meaning that all initial changes what would like to be implemented in the product need to be divided between different based on the requirements, like processing, how the transaction is working, or like specific functionality requirement. And for this, there is area product owners activities. So, as I have, it was just giving you overview. In this case, today, I would like to share with you how these product owners feels like and how they work and how their daily life. So, just to letting you know how they feel inside, just you can imagine it yourself inside product owner's shoes. I as well promise you surprise. That's why I would like to ask on the stage my colleague, Daria Konina, who will tell you how she feels in her shoes, not in this perfect red one, but working as a product owner.
Thank you, Romāns. Yes, I didn't know. This was a surprise how I will be introduced. I was not said that I will be the surprise for you, so sorry if you feel disappointed. But as Romāns said, our transformation to Agile was, to say at least, extremely in short time and extremely squeezed. So we, the product owners, still feel like 2 years old, at least. So that's why the picture is relevant here in this aspect. And I am responsible for one of the areas. We have 4 of those. And in total, we have like 13 teams, development teams, and I am responsible for 4 of them in my area. And yeah, well, I will not be speaking about the theory of product ownership. I think you've heard enough of that already. If you do want to hear something, you can catch me up later on. But I would like to share the hands-on approach and share with my experience as a product owner, since I have been there from the very first sprint.
Let's speak about your everyday life.
Yeah. This is what you get when you prepare a presentation with your boss. He thinks that my everyday life looks like this. Even though it seems like that, it feels like a completely different story. And here we have only 1 boat, but I have like 4 boats, and I have to navigate them kind of still from the same position. So to elaborate a little bit why it actually feels so complicated, there are some maybe cornerstones I would like to mention to you, so just to give you kind of this perspective, what are we dealing with? Because we are this working in enterprise, there is no such one small product that we could deal with, and I can't take decisions on my own because it's too complex. So first of all, as Romāns mentioned, we have these international card organizations like Visa and MasterCard, so there are mandatory requirements that we need to meet on specific dates, and we can't actually play with those dates and say, oh, we need just a little 1 or 2 sprints to finalize this. No, it's just a really strict date, we have to follow it. So we have to play around that somehow. We have enormous amount of customer change requests. I think each of one of you know what that is and how to deal with them, and I will share some tips and tricks how we do that in our changing environment. Customer projects with development. This is also an interesting topic for us because since we did migrate to this agile way of working, there is a part of our organization that still works in a project basis. So we have these two different worlds combined in one, and me as a product owner, I have to kind of be this single point of combining this all together and giving the perfect output kind of to the leadership team and my boss here so that everything works. And the last one is bug fix. Yeah, you probably all know that, and what we will share is how we organized it, how we are dealing with bugs that are coming from very different sources. So either it's kind of just some maintenance improvements or performance or some security things or whatever. So they're coming from everywhere. Probably you know that. So we will share how we tackled that part.
So, two release train is coming. Because in generally in our life, there is no possibility to move the dates. Because if the Visa Amex decide that they will change their format from the October 13, they will change the format from the October 13, and we should support that, and all our customers should receive the new versions. But working on these regular releases was as well a very interesting part for our regular, not mandatory stuff, but changes, but the feature, how we implement them. Because each time we as well would like to pay the attention to our customers that we improve our product. We are not only compliance team, that as well we do our best that our product is give additional benefits to the customers. That's why all our kind of features are aligned to some releases. We regularly support 3 major versions of our card suite, meaning that there are 3 big generations that are working on that 3 major versions. And for each major version, on the 2 times per year, on the autumn and the spring, we provide the minor releases. It's like we are delivering 1 release for all 3 major versions on the specific date of time, what is regular. What is interesting that in this case we should as well plan quite ahead about our internal features, because our customers would like to receive from us such thing like a roadmap, because they would like to know what kind of new functionality will appear in the software, and as well they can plan, do they would like to upgrade to the next minor release only, or to go to the bigger changes to upgrade to the major release. So for us, and what is interesting in here for product owner point of view, the release put the additional like on top of schedule what should be implemented, because if the train is just come and the feature is not ready, then this feature miss this train and then it postponed to the next release. And how to deal with this situation, it's sometimes very complex because it's what can be already promised. There could be some kind of dependencies on it, and how we could replan it just to be able to deliver that.
Just to elaborate a little bit on that, as a product owner, what we do is we actually try to get some real priorities from the management. So we know that releases, which are mandatory, they get the top priority. So we can use that as a kind of argument, so to say, in our daily life, and say that this is mandatory, so we can really push this forward to kind of really stick to the promised scope for the release. Okay.
Yeah, in generally, of course, there is some kind of ways how we do that, because we know that usually there is all kind of international card organization publish their changes a few months before they really go live. For example, we receive them in the July, and for the changes what must be implemented till the October. The problem is that they time to time introduce the last update to these changes in the September, but the date for delivering is still the same, and there goes like huge rush for them.
Yeah, it's fun. Right, so the change requests. The main issue with the change requests is so that in order for customer line to sell them, they have to give a specific date when we can deliver it. And in Agile, well, you can imagine, if you are planning only for one sprint ahead, it's kind of difficult to know when will you be able to finalize the change request, which requires like a month of development in a way, if you have 2-week sprint, for instance. So at the beginning of the transformation, this gave us a really big headache, and we had a lot of discussions, like heated discussions with the customer line, because they need the date, and we are kind of, well, we are out of tools how to give them. So what we did is eventually each of the area product owners, we have our own way how to plan these things, and it's not really fixed way, but it helps and it works in a way so we can, it's not centralized, we have some freedom in it until we keep the dates, of course. As soon as we won't, I believe it will become some kind of a strict guideline how to do this. But currently, for instance, in my area, I'm using as simple as Excel tool. So I have my 4 teams, which I know the strength of. So since the product is so large and complex, we don't have these very, how to say it, teams that can do everything. So the specialization is still there, and I know the strengths of each team, and I can kind of plan more or less which team would be the best to do this job, so this particular change request. And I have just like sprint by sprint, I just reserve some time so that I know that I shouldn't be planning like for the same sprint some additional works for them. So just some really basic things that actually gives us some kind of expected workload ahead with the known change requests, and then of course we can play with them, because I think it's for in every company that not all of change requests get signed eventually. So some of them kind of just fall out, and we can fill in the space with some other work. So I know that my fellow colleagues, other area product owners, they are using the tool the previous speakers mentioned, the Jira, maybe you know it. So we have a sprints there, and they're just creating the tasks for the change requests ahead in the Jira backlog, so you can see what's coming up. And since we do have this freedom for teams to select the tasks, so it's kind of up to them, do they want to try something new or work with the things that they know, they see what's coming up, so they can kind of see what they want to do, and it's up for them to select these. But still, for the product owners, it gives some kind of planning in a way so that we can give some date to the customer line so that they could sell the change requests, because of course we need them.
So to simplify it, just let's imagine the workflow. I'm from the customer team, and I would like to receive this button red. What is your action?
First, tell you it's not possible, we work in Agile. But then, of course, I will just evaluate it and plan it and give you some kind of date, and then try to stick to it, of course, if you sign it.
If I sign it, that meaning that you give me a date and some costs, potentially,
yes,
and then you plan in your Excel.
Yes.
And what happens when I come and say, okay, I will not sign it?
Okay, if you say you will not sign it, then I would review the upcoming change requests to see if I can provide a better delivery date, for instance, because we are kind of interested in revenue, I suppose each company is. So this is actually work that helps us to build this bridge from the development to the customer line, because quite often there's a gap between, and if you kind of provide them some additional this help and information that okay, there is a chance to do this better and faster, then they have this upper hand and they can kind of communicate with the customer and kind of, we all look better in the end. So we can deliver change requests faster and the customer line is more happy and so on. And I get to play around with something at least. So in a way, to help our company to get some more revenues.
Okay, it's about the small changes, but what if I would like to know bigger changes in my product, which requires more time?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we do have this a little bit of split in our world, in our enterprise. So the development has moved to Agile, but the customer lines still have these customer projects with a fixed, hopefully fixed scope and fixed deadlines. So the big projects for us is something that would involve multiple teams for at least several months. So you really need to kind of organize it all together. And a key point is actually that in the Agile part of our development, we don't have project managers. So probably you can imagine it's quite tricky if you have like 7 teams working on one project with tight deadline. And how we are dealing with it is we are playing with leading team concept. Hopefully you've heard of it. Have you? Should I elaborate on it?
Just raise the hand who know what is mean leading team.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, one hand.
Great, but still, I will a little bit elaborate. It's just one of the Scrum teams that you have, which is taking over the responsibility to communicate with other teams. So they are kind of being, they're not the bosses of the other teams, no. They are just the ones that are communicating and organizing and arranging things so that they would happen in the right order, in the right time, and that those teams would do the right thing. Because if the work is spread, it's quite the risk that each team understands it differently and they are just thinking about their task to kind of close the sprint, job done, and that's it. So they are not thinking about how it will all work in the whole solution. And that leads to another point that I want to mention, which is one of the key responsibility of the leading team. It is responsible to ensure continuous integration. What it means practically for those who are not really, really deep IT guys like me, it means that actually this team is retesting the solution practically each day to ensure that the changes that have been developed kind of by the time they don't break what has been already kind of developed and tested. So every new addition, as soon as it gets into our dist or package or whatever, it gets tested again in these small increments so that we are sure that, for instance, this morning, I know that the solution is working because no one has developed anything yet, in a way. So I feel safe, the team feels safe, the customer feels safe. In a way, it is really, really important. Probably Romāns wants to add something about the continuous integration because it's his, how to better put it, a baby since we transformed to Agile. So it was his dream to implement it actually because we had some difficulties proving that it's needed. So maybe you can share something.
One thing that I would like to share, because it will take a lot of time to explain how it works in more details, you can just catch me in the break, I will discuss with you in details. But one thing was for us like a wow approach that in this case, if previously was pushing the people to perform these automated tests, and usually it was pushed on the testers. Because you are testing, you know what you're testing, just repeat it, please automate. We have internal tools for that, external tools. But there was always like, because I know how to test it manually, but it is very hard to switch to the complicated automated, run some scripts, etc. In the Agile way of working, just saying the team you must automate. All kind of programmers, I like this. It's like writing the code. And they was really, really deep in that. And we have like huge number, like gaining of the test, what was written by the developers themselves, avoiding and the testers was playing the role of saying what should be done, and the programmers easily, okay, have you tried this approach? Yes, 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 okay, I will test it, test it. And it was very, very interesting because we was not ever thought that the problem is that we are not pushing the right persons to create the test. But if we started to speak about the programs, they like to do the testing. So one more thing that, of course, automated tests covers some kind of bug fixes, but still there is one important thing left here. In our world, the sprints go by sprint, but there is a release train, and the customers is using the version what was developed about 5 months ago, 4 months ago. And when they found something, it's very hard to understand that, okay, this team was responsible for that and they need to fix it, because they are already working in the different sprint, completely different kind of subject, and they are not ready to remember what they did it. Of course, one of the approaches is to create a special hero bug fix team, but we understood that it is not our way, because sooner or later we just give all of them just quitting just say, okay, I'm going to a different, more interesting job. That's why we introduced a thing like on-duty teams. We said that in each area, for one sprint, one team is like responsible for the bug fixing. Whatsoever kind of bugs they will receive, they will trying to do their best to fix it. Next sprint, they are working on the sprint tasks, and for example, like 4 teams, then meaning that they have this bug fix on the duty sprint once per 3 sprints, meaning 1 bug fix, 3 usual, 1 bug fix, 3 usual for each team. And this approach is working.
Another benefit of that, if I may add, is such that this allows teams to kind of widen the scope of the code which they are working with, because as I mentioned, the teams still have this specialization in a way, so they have their strength areas, and this on-duty approach helps them to become more and more like these universal soldiers in a way, because this is not easy to kind of get teams who were focused on specific component and then kind of move them to feature-based and then expect that they will be able to kind of develop in whatever area we need them to. So this is actually helping us to transform them gradually without adding like a lot of stress on that. So of course they are communicating with other teams and in order to gain this missing expertise or knowledge. So in a way we hope we have provided the stress-free opportunity and an environment for them to kind of for this learning and enhancing their kind of knowledge of this. And so killing the birds with 2 stones, no, with 1 stone, 2 birds, yeah.
Okay, we can speak a lot about all kind of activities. The last thing of the regular things, it's about the regular meetings. Some of them are very regular and described in the methodologies. We just would like to speak about one of them.
No. Yeah, I would like to talk about all of them, but in short, of course. So as a product owner, I have 4 main meetings. So with the Scrum teams, we have refinement meeting where we go through the new tasks that are upcoming so the team can ask their questions, kind of take some time to think about it and so on, so that I'm sure that they are familiarized with the tasks that are upcoming. Then we have the demos, when the teams share with the other teams what they have done. The customer line comes in, they see if it looks as they expected and so on. So we're kind of we're trying to make it more wide, these demos, as possible as we can. And the third is the planning, where, again, I'm going in a room with team representatives, and no one leaves until they take the mandatory tasks. And then, of course, if the capacity allows, they can take something they like as well.
But still, let's take this one, what I was mentioning. It's about the product planning meeting, which we migrated and joined with the product refinement meeting.
Yep. This is a meeting that is happening once a week, where all the area product owners come together with our big product owner, and we also invite the customer line there. So the customer line is the one that brings in the new change requests, new requirements from the customers, new projects, and so on. So this is a meeting where we all come together and we discuss what are the new things that customer wants. And we use this meeting as an opportunity to kind of refine those things as soon as possible, because quite often the customer line, they just receive some request from customer, I want the blue button, but why do they need it? So we are asking these like 4 or 5 whys at least to try to get to the truth and understand what is really behind this. We don't want our customers kind of tell how to do it. We want to understand what is their need, and then we can provide the best solution for it. So this meeting has actually become this refinement and planning come all together, and we just work on the common backlog, and we work with the customer line, and it brings us all closer again. So we're trying to divide this gap between us. And it has proven actually really, really useful, even though not all of us like it sometimes, you know, because we have to answer for some tough questions, like try to answer 5 whys for why customer wants a button. So yeah, but it's worth it. So at least for us, it works.
It's about the regular activity. Let's share what is most important for the product owner.
Yes, if my manager would ask, what is the most important thing that you do? I communicate. I have like hundreds of stakeholders would I have to take into account. So we have, since the complexity of our product, we have enormous significance of these experts that we need to contact with, because God forbid you would kind of take the wrong approach, because then it won't work. So you have to include them as soon as possible in order to mitigate this risk that something will not work at the end, or something is not taken into account, and so on. We have the Scrum Masters, of course. So I have 4 teams and I have 4 Scrum Masters, even though some of them have we don't have this 1 Scrum Master, 1 team. But I'm the lucky product owner who has 4 teams and 4 Scrum Masters, so I have to work with all of them. Of course, the Scrum teams, actually I'm one of those product owners who has decided to move closer to the team, so I'm actually sitting with them and being close to them, and it had proven really, really useful, because this communication has come to totally different level. They don't see me as it's a product owner who sits with the managers, so I won't ask anything. Let's wait for the demo, and then I will say that this task wasn't done because I didn't have some information or something like that. Because that happened. And since I'm sitting with them, my manager doesn't like it. He has reserved the seat.
I'm missing because she's not sitting near to us.
Yeah, but actually, from my experience, I really suggest at least to try, because it really brings a totally new level of communication with the team. You kind of become one of them in a way, so it's really much easier to communicate. Yeah, so that's with the Scrum teams. We have support of the customer, who are the ones that are asking, what about this bug that I reported 2 weeks ago? Why isn't it done? And so on. So they have hundreds of questions, and they have their own priorities, so we have to take them into account as well, planning the things. Other product owners, because we have change request projects which involve multiple areas, multiple teams, we have to coordinate, so you can't live without that one. The product managers or the offering, who are the ones that are driving the new initiatives, new investment things, so we have to communicate with them. And the business analysts, as I mentioned, so it's the customer team representatives whom we are trying to get into Monday's meetings and squeeze the whys out of them. So there are a lot of people that we need to handle, to communicate with. Because, if you communicate on timely matter, it kind of gives you such a great feeling that you can mitigate so many risks in advance. You don't get lost otherwise in the end. So you're kind of on your top game, and you know what's happening, what everyone wants, and it's so much easier to plan the backlog afterwards.
Yeah, speaking about the backlog and what is of the tools of the product owners, what about the epics and stories?
Yeah. When we were preparing this presentation, Romāns asked me, what is the thing that you dislike the most about your job? And I was saying, I didn't need any second to think about it. It was the writing of the stories. For me, it's like punishment. But, and I can explain why. Because, first of all, our product is so complex that we don't have a single person who knows everything. So I need to get all the experts, get the right kind of information from them. I have to communicate with everyone else to try to understand how to formulate the story. I involve the teams because they need to afterwards they will receive the story. So to ensure the commitment and that they understand what we are doing. So there are customer teams who should validate whether it's what they want to have in the end. So writing a story is actually feeling like a quest every day. And I had this discussion with one of the developers from my teams, and I was saying, oh my gosh, I hate writing those stories so much. I don't understand why you guys couldn't just write them, because you know what to do. I mean, I can tell you, let's create a button, and you can write what to do in a way in a story. And they said, are you crazy? Can you imagine how the backlog would look like if each and every one of us would write a story? It would be like total disaster. So yeah, I'm starting to feel like this is important task. And in a way, this whole communication leads to this story writing in the end, because the more information you gather, the easier for you as a product owner is to create this story. So
yes, in our business, when there is a huge product, a lot of complexity on top of that, a lot of experts involved, the product owner is not the one person who can just, okay, I imagined the thing, I ordered the thing, and they just develop the thing. Because there is a lot of parties who is involved, there is customers with sometimes quite precise requirements, and we should figure out how to do it, and usually it's impossible without involving a lot of deep experts who can say it's possible or how it can be done. So let's try to summarize what we just shared with you. That for us, as we see the enterprise product owner role, then one huge thing what is very, very important is communication. Because every day there is a lot of people just to share ideas or just to put to people to speak about, to speak between themselves. The second, it is, yes, it's sometimes very hard, but it is possible to promise some precise days in Agile. Because in the enterprise world, there is not possible to say that, dear bank, we will deliver your feature sometimes according to our priority list. It can be in this month, but it can be after a half a year if something more important will appear. Sorry for that. They don't accept such answers. And story writing is sometimes a quest that just requires just to go to one person, another, just take one hand and bring to another to discuss, and then write down what is interesting, what is important, that after some period of time, when the people will read it, they understand what it is about, what is the acceptance criteria, what should be done, and how the idea and some kind of restrictions was mentioned then. And the last one, what we was not mentioning many in our story, but tailoring of the process is always will happen, and you will not be able to follow strictly all kind of these procedures and regulations, what comes from all kind of methodologies or best practices. Because in each business there will be something unique.
And it gives you an opportunity to be creative in a way, to try out new things. So it makes things interesting, right? Yeah, so if you think this is the end and everything is ready, of course you're wrong, because we still have some puzzle that we are still scratching our heads about and how to deal with it in the best way. So first one for me as a product owner is cooperation with Scrum Masters. Since this transition was quite fast and we didn't hire any external experts to be as a Scrum Masters, we are all growing together in the same time. So in a way, this cooperation with them, how to enable them to work with the team so that the team really owns the task that they take, so I can feel safe and not worry that that they won't deliver something or that they don't feel kind of comfortable with the story or they don't know what to do with it. In a way, this is still a struggle for us, the product owners, in this aspect. Customer line. Yes, I mentioned that we are bringing them on Monday meetings. It's a success story for like 2-3 months since our transition. So it's still work in progress, and we are trying to find those points of interest that they would be that would be a candy for them, so that they would be interested to come, that they wouldn't be scared of those questions, of those whys we are asking, because we are trying to show them the value of that. I mean, they are kind of getting deeper understanding of customer requirements. We get the clearer requirements in the end, so it's kind of a win-win, but still somehow it
still puzzles us.
Still puzzles us how to get them to come.
One more.
Yeah,
last.
and the story points. We didn't mention it, but during our transition, we also moved from the days to story points. And still it varies from team to team, from area to area, and we are kind of still playing with it, trying to understand how to better use them in the end, because I, as a product owner, okay, thank God I have only 4 teams at this moment, so I know each team how they value their story points. So for this team, 1 story point is actually 1 day. For this, it's 1 to 2. And for this team, they just don't know. They're just putting it like, okay, let's put 3 story points, whatever that means. So other teams are playing with the T-shirt mode, like small, medium, large, and so on. So we are still working on this.
We have tried several approaches how to evaluate something, but still the current best approach is based on the expert's opinion now from the historical point of view. They just, okay, it feels like it will cost the following, because all kind of history that we collected, it still more precise is the evaluation of the experts, just statistics not working. So, any questions?
Is there anything? Yeah.
Yeah, you said you're doing that for a couple of years now. What about your bottom line in terms of profitability?
Yes, in generally, when we was working quite long in the waterfall, we as well felt that we reach some kind of ceiling in this approach. And when we moved to Agile, all management was informed that in this case, it will require a drop down, because it will cost. It will cost because we are changing the way we're working. We are change which people is working in which areas, and there are not like any more situation when there is a problem, there is best guy who can solve it. Let's just bring them together and happy rest of that. But there goes benefits later. We understood after half a year of working that we almost reached the same level of efficiency. And now we are going above that, meaning that we are able to develop more in shorter period of time. Sometimes it's longer period of time, but we can involve more complicated stories inside that and make it just easier and more transparent. And what additional benefit, what is not so connected to the physical one-story efficiency, but we see like the average load was distributed, because in some cases previously there was situation when one team was overloaded because there was a lot of requirements in one module part of the system, and in the other models there was less tasks, and we just was figuring out what can be improved, etc., just to keep people busy, avoiding to give the task what is paid by customers and something like that, because they doesn't have necessary knowledges.
Yep.
I got another one, if that's okay. So I guess in banking sector, etc., you might have requirements like security, etc., which in essence are more or less like functional requirements. You need to implement X, Y, Z, and there is no actual user story. So isn't that easier for you just to stick to these requirements written rather than to have the user stories and all that Agile stuff?
No, because when the requirements doesn't take into account the specific our software. Meaning that the initial requirement says, okay, now, for example, GDPR is coming. If you have heard about it, you should protect everything, and then let's develop something that is required. For example, we should have possibility to extract the data, and it's the requirements itself. In this case, we should elaborate more deeper and define, okay, we would like to extract the following information, and we can do it using the following tools just to avoid some kind of system overloads and what we will do with it. Or how to erase the data. Is it possible to erase everything, or we will just clear them, just make it unreadable, etc.
All right, one last question, and we have 2, so.
Last 2 questions.
Last 2 questions.
Okay, thank you. Regarding to the previous question, my question is, what is the main reason that you started moving from waterfall to Agile? I mean, from the company's perspective, the better bottom line, the better time to market. What was the essential thing that you decided to move to the Agile?
One thing that I have already used in this answer, that we feel that we hit the ceiling of the efficiency. We understood that there is no other option how we can improve that, avoiding double cost just to take more teams in one area, just in case if there is overload, there is more teams, but there is no load, then what to do them? They just, of course, they can improve, the product will be better, but in the business area, there is costs going here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the workload, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and one last question.
My question was just answered, so rather a comment. From looking from the high-level point of view, and again, not from the efficiency point of view, you mentioned many things which are efficient for you, and that you are now more efficient using Agile, but from the business point of view, I didn't really get the point. You were hitting deadlines earlier, because obviously you're still in the business, and you are now hitting the deadlines just as you were before, so from the business point of view, I don't really get what's the really value of the transition into Agile to your clients, and if there is a value, how did you measure it?
Like in all times, the value is totally measured in the money. Generally, main part of them. That's why we accumulated not like about one story, how we develop that, but in the totally what our people are doing. And we see that in current situation, we are giving a little bit more than we did in the waterfall, but now we like clearly see how it improves time by time. We're not saying that we are perfect now, we just do it for 2 years and we just recently reached the previous level of the efficiency, and that, but we see how it develops and how it will improve in the future. Yes, I understand that.
The clients still get what they ask you to do, right? So from their point of view.
From their point of view, the customer, one specific customers, they divide. If they are lucky, they receive. We just tried to work with Agile with one of the customer. We understood that it is for the customer very interesting thing to work that because they can change, adjust, but they still want us to sign the specific end date and specific scope. And for us, it's an additional nightmare how to deal with the customer expectations, as I say sometimes, okay, now you reach your maximum what you can change, and we avoid in the future. We see that for some of customers, they feel how it goes. These all release changes, there's all continuous implementation gives us much better results than the quality way of working, because it goes automation. In some cases, from the financial point of view, for customers, it costs same. In general, we are not saying that we are now cheaper for customers. But for us, as we see how we evolve our people, we feel that it's better. Okay,
Right.
thank you very much.
Thank you,
and
guys.
then
Thank you very much.
thank you.